Keeps an eye on that by-election. He'll be giving us more details as we continue. Now, trouble for DCI boss George Kinoti intensified after High Court ordered his senior Inspector General of Police Hilary Mutyambai to arrest him for failing to heed court orders. This follows failure by Kinoti to surrender to Committee Maximum Prison, where he is to serve a 4-month jail term. Now, the DCI boss found himself in trouble after being convicted 4 months in jail for contempt of court. His efforts to challenge the conviction have not borne fruits, with the court insisting he must serve the jail term. The bone of contention here is failure by Kinoti to surrender firearms he seized from businessman Jimmy Wanjige. And I want us to now make sense of this by speaking to Duncan Okach, who's an advocate of the High Court, to just look at what options are there for Kinoti. And now that a directive has been given to Inspector General of Police Hilary Mutyambai, what does it mean for him in that office? Very good morning to you, Duncan Okach. As always, thank you for agreeing to speak to us here. Looking at the situation now and that order for arrest, what does this mean for Kinoti? What options does he have?
Thank you so much for having me. Indeed, this is quite telling, and it is quite a trying time for the DCI boss, George Kinoti, because not only were those orders granted in terms of the ruling by Justice Mrima, but now the effect of it is actually being seen, because Justice Mrima indicated in his decision that if the DCI boss does not present himself to committee within 7 days, then the consequential action will be for the IG to actually arrest him. But even if the IG does not comply and arrest him, then he says that that order will remain in effect for posterity until he leaves office, and will one day have to be implemented. So what we are left to see is now whether the IG will act and obey these court orders and eventually arrest the DCI boss and arraign him in court, whereby he will now stand trial in terms of whether he is in contempt of court or not. That is whether he has disobeyed the lawful order of presenting himself to committee.
What happens if the Inspector General of Police equally does not act on this court order? What happens?
The funny thing in this court order is that it has preempted disobedience of the said court orders, even by the IG himself. And I think I don't know if it is to be termed as progressive, but the court should not envisage a court order being not being respected when the court is issuing that order. But I think the court is living in the modern times where orders are not being respected. And the court indicated that indeed, if the DCI boss does not respect that court order, then the IG is supposed to implement it. But it has also gone further and said if the IG does not respect it, yes, it will remain for posterity, and one day, one time, it will be implemented. But therein lies the catch, because it will put the Inspector General in the same position that the DCI boss is in, because he will also have disobeyed a lawful court order. So we will have an IG who will also be in contempt. Warrants can as well be issued to him. We do not know who will then be implementing that particular warrant. But it will be quite a trying time, because if you do not issue warrants of arrest now against the IG, having disobeyed a lawful court order, then someone can complain and say that then this court is actually discriminating against the DCI boss, because they will be in the same balance in terms of the issue of respecting court orders.
Questions have been asked because the DCI was unlucky with the first appeal. So can he appeal this? What happens? Is there room to do this? Just for the sake of our audience, just break that down for us.
Indeed, once the High Court has rendered itself, you can actually move directly to the Court of Appeal and seek for stay orders. And the Court of Appeal has the power to actually stay these orders of arrest. However, even before you move to the Court of Appeal, you can as well go back to the same court that has issued the order, that is the High Court, and seek that it actually stays that order to allow you to appeal, or you give reasons why the court should stay. So what the DCI boss did is that he approached the same court of Honorable Justice Mrema and made that application. The court did not agree with him. But that does not mean he has actually appealed, because the appeal is what lies in the Court of Appeal, which he has already approached the Court of Appeal, and the application is actually going to be heard. And I believe the Court of Appeal will then render itself whether to stay these orders or not to stay the orders. But I know that someone will actually argue that a person who is in contempt of court cannot even get audience of that court. And I think that is what Justice Mrema, what guided Justice Mrema when the DCI boss made his application. He said, I will hear you if you are already obeying the court order, presupposing that he should have already presented himself to committee maximum prison, and therein make his application, and the court will entertain. I'm sure that argument can still be raised at the Court of Appeal, and it will be interesting to see how the Court of Appeal will deal or will want to deal with that particular question. But the rule of the thumb is that the Court of Appeal can actually stay all these orders and give them a chance to be heard in terms of the substantive appeal. And if the appeal is successful, well and good. If the appeal is not successful, we go back to where we are, wherein he's supposed to be, at committee maximum prison.
Very interesting insights there. It's a matter of wait and see. Let's see how the Court of Appeal handles this, if and when this makes it to their table. Duncan Okache is an advocate of the High Court. Thank you, Duncan, for agreeing to speak to us on just what are the options there for DCI boss George Kinoti, and that the IG has been thrown into this. What does it